The World Bank itself, who is incredibly avid in promoting globalization, cannot explain if globalization is helping our world for the better. With almost 100,000 jobs lost alone in Flint, Michigan, we should generate more information before acting. We should reject globalization because it destroys domestic jobs and exploits foreign laborers.
Before the era of General Motors, I was just a normal, plain guy with a 9-to-5 job. I worked hard and I received my master's degree from the University of Michigan in engineering. I worked for the same company for about 3 years and moved into a relatively nice home in the suburbs with my girlfriend and 2 kids. I applied to a job with General Motors in the area for a head of department position as an engineer and got it. I had a very nice job with nice employees and a great salary, about 3 times more than what I got at my old job. Decent for a starting engineer at the time.
After graduating, I decided to return home and find a job close to home. A few months after I went home, I found a job at GM's factory in Flint as the assistant manager. It was a dream job, and I could not believe I was actually the assistant manager at such a large factory. I've been recently promoted to manager of the factory, and I hope to keep this job until I retire. I've been working at GM's factory in Flint since I was 16 years old, and I've never worked anywhere but there. It's a lifestyle I've learned to live and love, and I could never imagine working anywhere else. It's the best job a man could wish for, and I'll be working there till the day I die.
Then my world fell around me. News spread that my factory was closing and people began to panic. What I feared the most happened. I lost my job that I took so much pride in. It took me 14 months to find a job, but I finally found one. However, it was nothing close to what I had before. Now we have to watch what we spend in order to keep that money that we saved in the bank for our children's futures. General Motors has devastated my life and the lives of my wife and kids. I will never forgive them for what they have done.
I am a middle-class worker in Flint, Michigan. I have grown up in Flint my whole life and have a high school education. I used to work in the General Motors factory in Flint, but was cut with around 80,000 other factory workers. I secured a good position in the factory above where the uneducated workers start off. I assembled components for spark plugs, which required more training and intellect than other assembly lines. Now, I was cut and have skills that are no longer applicable to any job I will get. I hope to be promoted up to a manager, but my hopes were cut short with the factory closings. While I had a job with General Motors, I could afford to take college classes at the University of Michigan. Without my job in the factory, I was forced to move in with my parents due to a lack of money. General Motors hurt my career greatly. More importantly, General Motors has left such a strong negative impact on all of Flint. Most, if not all people, will never buy anything related to GM during the rest of their lives.
The factory was my life, because I never got married and I never had no kids. So all I had was a factory and my friends that worked there. My family had mostly passed away by the time the factory closed. The only people who were left were my 2 sisters and my older brother. The day that the factory closed, my life came tumbling down. I could not find another job and I couldn't live on my own. I moved in with my oldest sister and I became a drunk. I made her life so miserable that her and her husband got divorced. And for what? So some little kids in Cambodia can make the money that I had? I'm an American and so is GM. They should have taken care of Americans like me and give us back our jobs. They took our jobs. I am now stuck collecting welfare and doing nothing but drinking my life away and ruining everyone else's lives. None of this would have happened if the factory hadn't been closed, and the only people to blame are GM owners who are traitors to the nation and our people.
Pollution in Chennai has increased alarmingly. People are suffering from these American companies entering into our nation and trying to modernize America, but in reality they are only ruining the land in India. In addition, they are introducing their values, which is only degrading our standards and completely changing the paradigms of India. By doing this, our culture is being tainted by these different beliefs, which is causing my people to become stagnant and apathetic. This will only lead to another collapse in our economic world, and we do not need other countries' failures. I say we do not need other countries' failures. We don't need other countries' failures.
I was born in Hollis, Michigan, just south of Flint, Michigan. Growing up around factories my whole life, I could see how crucial these factories were because they provided jobs to many residents around my area. When General Motors started cutting job positions, many of my friends and family were left without a job. General Motors did not supply the workers with any sorts of help with finding a new job. Cheap labor is more important to companies than the well-being of their own country's citizens.
As a senator of Michigan, I personally believed at first that allowing General Motors into Michigan would be a good thing, with a cap on the amount of people employed there. I was, however, very cautious and worried at what could happen. The state passed the bill allowing General Motors to base a factory in Flint, Michigan, thinking that it would help the economy grow significantly, including the installation of tolls outside of the city and the eventual population growth both in and around the city. Slowly but surely, the company was built and employees began working. Within 2 years, more than 80,000 people worked for General Motors in Flint. Things seemed to go well at first, more revenue for the state. More than 60% of the population of Flint had some affiliation with the company before it pulled out. Crime rate skyrocketed and the commerce in the area virtually shut down, and I will always blame myself for allowing such a bill to pass in my office.
Now that the company has taken over this part of the city, people have begun to lift themselves out of the streets and find their way out of apathy and stagnation and into productive and contributive society. Since my son began to receive good tuition, he has gotten into NRI college and now has progressed into a medical career into one day being a cardiologist at Harvard Medical in America. Through this, I have been able to become happier and live a better life. I've been able to get a good flat, get good pay, get good money, get good food, get AC, air conditioning, and have a good life.
I made more money than any 27-year-old kid could have dreamed of, and I was a millionaire by the time the factory closed in 1999. When the factory closed, I was without a job, but fortunately, I had made enough money to support me till I found a new job. I did not really pay a price for the factory closing, but I did not understand how GM could do this to the innocent workers. These workers had worked in the factory their whole life, and now they had nothing, and no jobs and no way to support their families. I truly felt hurt by the factory closing because I had grown to love the factory, but considering the money I made, I did not suffer at all from the closing.
Globalization is like a drug. People become so accustomed to a society where one company dominates everything, don't realize that once the company shuts them off, they have no idea what to do except panic.